was a lot of Star Wars TV that has come out recently, and some of it has been good, some of it has not been great. But one of the things that Bob Iger has come out and said since he's taken over the reins again after Bob Chapek has been unceremoniously rejected from the company, is he said that they want to cut back on Marvel and Star Wars television series. He thinks that those television series on Disney Plus has diluted the franchise. They want to focus once again on getting these movies back into theaters, back on the big screen. And it looks like they're taking yet another step to make this happen, because it has come out that the Lando series that Donald Glover and his brother are writing right now has now been converted from a series into a movie. Now, what's interesting about the Lando series is it was kind of dormant for a little bit. We didn't really have any information about it. It was announced back on Disney Investors Day back in like 2020 with when Obi-Wan was announced and Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron, which is now not looking like it's going to happen. That was also announced back in that day. But after that Investors Day meeting with Disney, they never really gave us any more information on Lando. Then a couple months back, Justin Simeon, who was the showrunner of Lando, said that they had a really great script. They thought that they were moving forward. They thought that it was going to work out. And then only a couple weeks after he made, maybe even a couple days after he made that quote, it was reported that Justin Simeon was now out of the Lando series, and Donald Glover and his brother were coming in to write, and Donald Glover would star in the Lando series for Disney Plus. And now, just another short time later, we're now finding out that Lando is going to become a movie. It says, during a recent appearance on the Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast, Stephen Glover couldn't say all much about his and Donald's Lando project, which the brothers reportedly signed on to before the writers and actors strike began earlier this year. Very good that they included that detail, because it would be really interesting to find out, like, why are they writing this during this time? It seems like bad timing. I wouldn't recommend it. Anyways, going on with the article. But Stephen did reveal that despite its initially being conceived as a series, it is actually now going to be a feature-length film, one the pair is excited about despite all the pressure that comes along with the fear of pissing off these fans. Yep, that's a good way of putting it. So, there you have it. Straight from the source. They are making Lando into a movie. Now, let's look at this from I have two different ways of looking at this and two different perspectives on this. So, we'll start over here on the creative side. I kind of like the idea of this being a movie better than I like it being a series. Now, I have been enjoying a majority, I would say, of the Star Wars shows. I did end up liking Obi-Wan, even though I was a little bit underwhelmed by it. I like The Mandalorian. I like Ahsoka. Book of Boba Fett's like the only one that I really despise. And Mandalorian Season 3 really didn't work for me. But there has been some good stuff that has come out of Star Wars television. That being said, I do find that these Disney Plus shows, both on the Star Wars and Marvel side, have always had trouble kind of pacing out their episodes. It always feels like the show has a really long start and a very rushed ending, and I don't know why they haven't been able to figure out how to balance that out a little bit better. Ahsoka feels like they're starting to get that right. It feels a little bit better paced at the moment, but with a lot of these shows, that's how I felt. So the fact that this Lando show that was going to be a series is now being converted into a movie, I only can hope that they've looked at the script and have decided that it fits better and it works better pacing wise as a 2.5 hour movie. So that's really good. Donald Glover, he belongs on the big screen. I mean, not to take away from any actors who have done the Disney Plus TV show stuff. TV show and movie star, they kind of cross over nowadays. It's not so one's over here anymore. But if you're gonna get Donald Glover in a series, in a movie, you want to see it on the big screen. And Lando was like the best part, at least in my opinion, of that solo Star Wars movie. So to see him back on the big screen doing some Lando stuff, I think that's where it belongs. That could be fun. And I've wanted to get Star Wars back on the big screen for a very long time now. The shows, they're fine, but Star Wars needs to be this event. Star Wars has not felt like an event, like you're counting down the days. Remember how that felt? Like Star Wars Force Awakens, Last Jedi, even Rise of Skywalker to an extent, watching the trailers, waiting for that day, waiting for that December release date, going to the theater opening, like it was an event. And Star Wars has not had that feeling, and Star Wars has not been that for way too long. So they got to start getting movies back in the theater, and this is their step to doing so. So let's look at it from that perspective. Now let's go over to the business side. What the frick? Why? why are they doing this as a movie? Because when you look at Star Wars, a Star Wars story, which, full disclosure, full transparency, I don't like Solo, a Star Wars story. I don't really like it all that much. Honestly, I checked out of that movie the minute that the guy gave Han Solo his name by just pulling it out of thin air. It did not work for me. And a lot of that film I think is ugly looking. It's just gray and the lighting is so dark and dull, and it just kind of feels like a glorified fan film to me. But one of the shining lights in the movie was Lando. Now, I guess you could look at this because people have wanted Solo: A Star Wars Story Part 2. At least a small majority, but loud voice on Twitter has wanted Solo: A Star Wars Story Part 2. So maybe this is their way of having their cake and eating it too. You know, we're not going to make Solo: A Star Wars Story Part 2 because the first one is the first Star Wars movie to lose money. Solo: A Star Wars Story was a flop. It did not make the studio money. It lost them money. But people like this Lando character, so maybe instead of giving Solo 2, we can just give them Lando as a movie, and people will gravitate towards that because he was the best part of Solo. So even people who don't like Solo: Star Wars Story will go see this Lando movie, which, to their credit, I didn't like Solo: Star Wars Story, but I'd be going to see this Lando movie. Like, I'd be first in line, even though Lando's like not really one of my favorite characters. So there's some really interesting perspectives to this. You got the business side where it just seems like they're making no sense. Hopefully the budget's very, very moderate, very not very high. Keep it around that 100 to 150 million maybe, and you might be making money back because Solo, I mean, it was a flop, and I don't really think that Lando is going to do much better than Solo: A Star Wars, especially since Solo: A Star Wars Story came out even at a better time. I mean, it was right after The Last Jedi, but people were still, the Star Wars fandom was still pretty buzzed and high getting Star Wars movies, whereas now the fandom feels very deflated. The fire does not feel as lit, and maybe Lando on the big screen, maybe that can bring that back. Well, what do you guys think of this? What do you guys think of Lando now being a movie as opposed to a series? Were you looking forward to watching it on your couch with some ice cream in hand, or are you going to be looking forward to getting into that theater seat and sitting down with your popcorn? Comment down below. Let me know, guys. I'd love to hear all your thoughts and opinions. And with that, let's see what you guys are saying about this.